Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. St. Peter's Square was full of people. There was a lot of excitement in the air. Everyone was waiting. They knew a new pope would appear soon. Then a man stepped out onto the big balcony of the church. He was wearing special clothes, white and red. As soon as the people saw him, they began to cheer. The sound of their happiness filled the large square. This man was the new leader for Catholics all over the world. He will now be known as Pope Leo XIV. Before this important day, his name was Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost. A group of important church leaders called cardinals chose him to be the new pope. This happened on May 8, 2025. The pope before Leo XIV was Pope Francis. Pope Francis was the leader of the Catholic Church for many years. He started in March 2013 and was pope until he passed away in April 2025. Many people around the world loved and remembered Pope Francis. He was a very special pope. For example, he was the first pope to come from Latin America. He was also the first Jesuit to become pope. And he was the first pope born far away from Europe in many hundreds of years. When a new pope makes his first appearance, it is a very significant event. Those first few minutes on the balcony are watched by millions. Each pope uses this moment to show his style of leadership. What he wears is not just clothes, it can be a message. The new name he chooses tells people about who he looks up to or what he thinks is important. Even his first words and how he says them are studied. People will talk about these first moments of Pope Leo XIV for a long time. They will look at videos and pictures. They will try to understand every detail. This is because a pope's first appearance is a tradition full of symbols. It gives clues about his plans for the church. This story will look closely at these first actions of Pope Leo XIV. We will try to understand what they might mean for the future. With any new leader, there are questions about what will change and what will stay the same. The Catholic Church has a very long history. Understanding a new pope's first steps helps us see how he might lead. It shows how he might continue old traditions or bring new ideas. This story is about these early signs from Pope Leo XIV. It helps us think about the Church's path forward. 2. A new leader. The time after Pope Francis was a period of change for the Catholic Church. Pope Francis led the Church for 12 years. He began his work as Pope on March 13, 2013. Many people around the world knew him and listened to his words. Then, on April 21, 2025, Pope Francis died. This news brought sadness to many faithful people. The church community knew it was time to find a new spiritual guide. The responsibility to choose the next pope fell to the cardinals. Cardinals are high-ranking leaders in the church, chosen by previous popes. They traveled from all parts of the world to Vatican City. There, they gathered for a very important and private meeting called a conclave. Inside the conclave, the cardinals pray for guidance. They talk with each other about the needs of the church. They think very carefully about which person among them would be the best leader. This special process is very old and full of tradition. The meetings are secret until a new pope is chosen. After the death of Pope Francis, the cardinals started their conclave. They spent time in deep prayer and serious discussion. It was a very significant time. On the second day of these important meetings, they made their choice. They selected Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost to become the new head of the Catholic Church. This decision happened on May 8, 2025. It is a custom for a new pope to choose a new name when he accepts the role. Cardinal Prevost chose the name Pope Leo XIV. This name connects him to other popes in history who were also called Leo. In St. Peter's Square, a huge open area in front of St. Peter's Basilica, thousands of people had gathered. They waited patiently for many hours. Some prayed, others talked quietly. Everyone watched the famous balcony of the basilica. This is the large church at the heart of Vatican City. They were all waiting for the announcement. Then the moment came. A figure dressed in white and red clothes stepped onto the balcony. It was Pope Leo XIV, the newly chosen pope. As soon as the people saw him, a great cheer went up from the crowd. The sound was enormous, filling the entire square. People waved flags from different countries and many were smiling and emotional. It was a moment of great happiness and hope for the future. They were ready to welcome their new leader. This was the very first time the world saw Pope Leo XIV. 3. The first hello. The first time a new pope appears on the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica is a very important event. Thousands of excited people gather in the square below. Millions more around the world watch on television. They are all waiting to see the new leader of the Catholic Church. This first appearance is much more than just a simple hello. It is a moment full of symbols. Symbols are special signs or actions that carry a deeper meaning. Everything the new pope does, and especially what he wears, in these first few minutes can show what kind of leader he plans to be. People study these details very carefully because they want to understand the new pope's style and his first messages for the church and for the world. To understand the importance, we can remember Pope Francis. When he first appeared on that same balcony in March 2013, he used this powerful moment to send a very clear message. He chose to wear very simple white clothes. It is true that popes have worn white for many centuries as a symbol of their office. However, some popes in the past also wore very special, rich-looking items like elaborate capes or jewels. Pope Francis did not. He also decided to wear his own old silver cross from when he was a cardinal in Argentina. He did not choose a new, more luxurious gold papal cross. These choices were significant. They immediately showed everyone that Pope Francis wanted his time as pope to be about simplicity and humility. He wanted to be a pope close to ordinary people and to live in a simple way. Now, on May 8, 2025, it was Pope Leo XIV's turn to step onto that famous balcony. The large crowd in St. Peter's Square cheered with joy and expectation. Everyone looked very closely to see how he would present himself to the world for the first time as Pope. Pope Leo XIV's appearance was different from Pope Francis's first appearance. He chose to follow some older traditions of the Church more closely. He wore the white papal clothes, of course, but over them he wore a short red cape. This special cape is called a mozzetta. Many popes before Pope Francis regularly wore the mozzetta for official occasions. Pope Francis, however, chose not to wear it for his first appearance. Pope Leo XIV also wore a gold cross around his neck. This was the traditional gold cross that is offered to a new pope when he accepts his important new role. These different choices in clothing between the two popes are interesting because they can tell us something important. Pope Francis's very simple style immediately showed his desire for a simpler church, and perhaps a church that was ready for some changes. He wanted to emphasize being a servant. Pope Leo XIV's decision to wear the traditional mozzetta and the gold cross showed a strong connection to the popes who came before Pope Francis. It suggested that he might want to show more continuity with the Church's long history and its formal traditions. These first actions are like an introduction from the new pope. They give an early idea of the direction he might take. Of course, these are only the first signs. Only time will truly show how Pope Leo XIV will lead and what his choices will mean for the Catholic Church. But these first symbolic moments are very important for everyone to see and think about. 4. Choosing a name. When a new pope is chosen, he often picks a new name for himself. This is an old and respected tradition in the Catholic Church. For many hundreds of years, the new leaders of the Church in Rome have decided to take a new name. This practice started a very long time ago, around the 6th century. Choosing a new name is an important first action for any new pope. The name he selects can give people an idea about what he thinks is important. It can also hint at his plans for leading the Church. Pope Francis, the pope before Leo XIV, also chose a new name. His birth name was Jorge Mario Bergoglio. He decided to be called Francis. He was the first pope to choose this name. The name Francis remembered Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis was a holy man from Italy who lived in the 13th century. He was known for living a simple life. He cared for poor people and for the earth. He wanted to live like Jesus. These ideas of simplicity, helping the poor and caring for the earth were very important during the 12 years Pope Francis led the Church. The new pope, formerly Cardinal Prevost, chose the name Leo. He is now Pope Leo XIV. This means he is the 14th pope with this name. This name choice is also significant. People will wonder what this name tells them about the new pope. It is a name with a long history in the Church. Which past Pope Leo might the new pope be thinking of? He could be thinking of more than one. However, a very important one was Pope Leo XIII. He was pope from 1878 to 1903. Pope Leo XIII is remembered for his writings on social justice. This means fairness for people in society. He also wrote about economics, politics, and work. His teachings have guided Catholic social thought for over 100 years. Pope Leo XIII also supported the ideas of Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas was an important religious thinker and saint from the Middle Ages. Leo XIII saw Aquinas as a model for Catholic study and for how the Church could speak to the modern world. So, the name Leo might show that Pope Leo XIV values these ideas of social teaching and thoughtful study. Choosing a name is a way for a new pope to send a message from the very beginning. 5. Special clothes and names. Popes usually wear white clothes. This tradition is many hundreds of years old. The white clothes are a symbol of their important job as leader of the Church. These clothes show that they are the Pope. In the past, some popes used items that looked like they belonged to kings. For example, some wore a special crown called a papal tiara. This was a tall crown with 3 parts. Pope Paul VI was the last pope to wear this tiara. This was between 1963 and 1978. A year later, he sold the crown. He gave the money from the crown to help poor people. This showed the Church's care for the poor. Other popes after him also stopped using royal symbols, like a special carried chair called a sedia gestatoria. Pope Francis continued this simplicity. He wore very simple clothes and lived a simple life. He wanted to show being pope was not like being a king. When Pope Leo XIV appeared, his clothes were a bit different from Pope Francis's. He wore a short cape called a mozzetta. He also wore a gold cross. This cross is given to a new pope when he accepts his job. These choices showed Pope Leo XIV was connecting to older traditions from popes before Pope Francis. His clothes were not as simple as the first clothes Pope Francis wore. This showed a small return to some older ways for a pope to dress. The pope has many different names or titles. These titles explain the pope's work and role. For example, one title is Vicar of Christ. This means he is Jesus's representative on earth. Another title, Servant of the Servants of God, shows the Pope helps other church leaders. The Pope is also leader of Vatican City State. Pope Francis knew he had these titles, but he often liked to use the title Bishop of Rome. A bishop is a leader of the church in a city or area. By using this title, Pope Francis showed he was part of a local community and close to people. In the year 2020, in an official book, Pope Francis listed Bishop of Rome as his main title. Other titles were called historic. When Pope Leo XIV first spoke to people, he also used important titles. He called himself the successor of Peter. Peter was the first pope, one of Jesus's apostles. This title means he follows Peter as leader. Like Pope Francis, Pope Leo XIV also called himself Bishop of Rome. He used words from St. Augustine, an old church writer, "For you I am a bishop, with you I am a Christian." This means he is a leader for people, but also a Christian like them. It shows he is not just a distant ruler, but with them in their faith. 6. First talk, first blessing. When a new pope first speaks to the large crowd and to the world, it is a very special moment. People watch and listen very carefully. His first public words and his first blessing are very important. They are like signs. These actions can show people what kind of pope he plans to be and how he might lead the church. Everyone looks for meaning in these first moments. Let us remember Pope Francis. When he first came out on the balcony in the year 2013, he did something that surprised many people. Before he gave his first blessing as pope, he did something different. He bowed his head and asked all the people in St. Peter's Square to pray for him. He asked for their blessing first. This was not the usual way. For many years, popes gave the blessing to the people first. Pope Francis wanted to show a strong mutual connection. He wanted to show that he and the people were together in faith. It showed that he did not see himself as a ruler far above everyone. He wanted their prayers to help him begin his work. Now, let's look at Pope Leo XIV. His first talk to the big crowd was also full of important messages. He described himself as the successor of Peter. This means he is following in the footsteps of Saint Peter, who was chosen by Jesus to be the first leader of the Church. Like Pope Francis, Pope Leo XIV also spoke of himself as the Bishop of Rome. He used some very old and wise words from a famous early church writer called Saint Augustine. Pope Leo XIV said, "For you I am a bishop, with you I am a Christian." These words showed that he understood he was a Christian first, sharing his faith with all other Christians before being their bishop. However, when it was time for the first blessing, Pope Leo XIV did things in a more traditional way. He gave the famous and very old blessing in the Latin language. Latin is the historic language of the Catholic Church. This special blessing is called Urbi et Orbi, which means to the city and to the world. It is a blessing for Rome and for all people everywhere. Pope Leo XIV did not ask the crowd to bless him or pray for him first, as Pope Francis had done. He followed the older custom for popes giving their first blessing. So, the first talk and the first blessing from Pope Leo XIV showed some interesting things. His words when he spoke showed that he felt close to the people, like a fellow Christian. But the way he gave his blessing was more in line with older traditions of the Church, the traditions seen before Pope Francis. These first important actions gave people early signs about the new pope. 7. Early visits and plans. Pope Leo XIV spoke very kindly about Pope Francis. He said a big thank you to Pope Francis for all his important work. Pope Leo explained that Pope Francis's idea of synodality was very important. Synodality means that all people in the Church should walk together, like a family. Pope Leo promised that this important idea would continue under his leadership. He also spoke to the cardinals. He told them that Pope Francis left something very special and valuable for the Church. He called this a precious legacy. Pope Leo said that everyone must work together to carry on this legacy. He wanted to make sure that Pope Francis's work was respected and would not be forgotten. This showed that Pope Leo deeply valued the Pope who came before him. Soon after he became Pope, Pope Leo XIV started to make some important first visits. His very first visit outside the Vatican City happened very quickly. It was less than 48 hours after he was chosen to be the new pope. He traveled to a special holy place called the Shrine of the Mother of Good Counsel. This shrine is located in a small town called Genazzano, which is just outside the city of Rome. Pope Leo said he greatly desired to visit this place at the beginning of his new work. He felt that the Church had given him this important new ministry. Another very significant visit was to the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome. This is a very old, large, and famous church. Inside this beautiful basilica, Pope Leo spent time in prayer. He prayed quietly at the tomb of Pope Francis. This was a way to show his deep respect for the Pope who had recently died. He also prayed before an important and ancient picture of Mary, the mother of Jesus. This special icon is called Salus Populi Romani, which in Latin means health of the Roman people or protector of the Roman people. Many popes before him had also prayed to this holy icon. These early visits were symbolic and showed what was important to Pope Leo as he began his papacy. Through these actions and his words, Pope Leo XIV wanted to show that he planned to continue many of Pope Francis's good ideas and reforms. Even though some of his first choices, like the clothes he wore when he first appeared, were a bit different from Pope Francis, his message about the future direction was clear. He strongly repeated that the Christian message should be for every single person. It should be a message that invites everyone and includes all people without leaving anyone out. This was a core message that Pope Francis often shared during his time as Pope. Pope Leo's early plans suggested a balance, respecting old traditions while also carrying forward the positive changes and the spirit of openness from Pope Francis. His message was that the Church would keep walking together, building on the important foundations Pope Francis had carefully laid. These first steps showed a pope ready to lead with both respect for the past and a vision for the future. 8. What comes next? The first days of Pope Leo XIV have shown different things. When a new pope starts, people watch very closely. They want to know what kind of leader he will be. Pope Leo XIV's first actions showed a mix. He did some things that reminded people of older church traditions. These are ways from popes before Pope Francis. But he also said he wants to continue the important work of Pope Francis. This mix is interesting for many people. It shows he respects the Church's long history. It also shows he is thinking about the future. When Pope Leo XIV first came out to greet people, his choices were noted. Some of these choices made people think of older church customs. For example, the special clothes he wore were traditional. The way he gave his first blessing was also traditional. This was a little different from Pope Francis. Pope Francis often chose simpler ways, so some people thought Pope Leo XIV wanted to show he was different. They thought he might bring back more old traditions. This was one idea people got from his first appearance, but there was more to understand. Pope Leo XIV also spoke very well of Pope Francis. He thanked Pope Francis for his work. He said Pope Francis left a precious legacy. A legacy is something important a person leaves for others. Pope Leo XIV said this legacy must go on. He talked about synodality. This was an important idea for Pope Francis. It means everyone in the Church walking together and listening to each other. Pope Leo XIV said this idea will continue. He also said the Church's message is for everyone. So what does all this mean? It looks like Pope Leo XIV is looking for a balance. He is not saying he is just like Pope Francis. He is not saying he is completely different either. His message seems to be, I will be my own pope. I will use good things from the past, but I will also continue Pope Francis's important new ideas. This could mean he will make changes carefully. He might keep some traditions strong. He might also help the Church grow in the open ways Pope Francis showed. He is trying to connect the past with the future. It is always hard to know exactly what will happen with a new leader. A new pope brings his own thoughts and his own way of leading. The Church is very big. It has a very long history. Changes often happen slowly. Pope Leo XIV has only just started his work as pope. The things he does and says in the next months and years will show more about his leadership. People will watch his decisions. They will listen to his words. They will see how he guides the Church around the world. These first moments of a new pope are important. They give us some first signs. They help us to start to understand the new leader. We have seen Pope Leo XIV make some traditional choices. We have also heard him promise to continue the important vision of Pope Francis. It looks like he wants to build on what came before. He does not want to forget it. The story of his time as Pope is just at the beginning. Only time will show the full story of his leadership. Then we will see how he will shape the Church for the years to come.